place to be is living free in Tennessee.
Well, welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Friday, June 13th. It's Friday the 13th. We better all watch out. Anyway, this is episode 1048 of Living Free in Tennessee, and it's a Friday show, so I am joined by the Tactical Redneck, who's not here, to talk about what's going on the homestead. Anyway, we're going to also talk about some things that are just a little bit more on the brainstorm of what we're working on here as we expand the Holler project and a whole bunch of other fun stuff today. Hello, Pippinized, and welcome to the live stream. My friends in the live stream, if you would like to ask a question or have a comment or hear about something more, just put the word question or comments in all caps so I can see it, and then I'll do my best to work it into the show. With that, I'm going to talk about our featured event of today's show, and that's the Special Operations Equipment Party, which is tomorrow. Tomorrow, I love you. Tomorrow. It is tomorrow, starting around noon. I'm sure people are already kind of around the compound at this point, but it is a celebration of Amanda's birthday and a whole bunch of other fun things going on. Kiri's been doing a lot of the organizing on that, and she's been out there all week getting set up for folks, so you should totally go there. So, SOEParty.com if you want to RSVP. I'll be there. I'm going to get there about noon tomorrow. I've already sent coffee out for the campers, so they have coffee to drink, and I think it's going to be a really good time. It's kind of nice to blow off some steam once in a while. So, check that out, SOEParty.com. Tactical has actually walked into my house now and is looking at the half-made lunch in progress because I was getting ahead of the game and making lunch before the show, and then it was time to start the show. So he's doing what he likes to do most, which is picking at food that I left out. Tori wants you to know that you have lost some parts of you. Well, you don't have a mic on, so they can't hear what you're saying, but she noticed that there's some parts of you missing here. So anyway, Amy, welcome to the live stream. I also want to thank two sponsors today. The first sponsor is John Pugliano of the Wealth Studying Podcast. He's been supporting the show since we launched sponsorship, and we really appreciate it. John Pugliano has an awesome podcast. I enjoy listening to it as I enjoy learning more about investing and money matters in general. It's at investablewealth.com. Click on podcast, and then you can just download episodes there, or you can take your podcast, search out the Wealth Studying Podcast, and go from there. I don't think you'll regret it if you start listening. That's all I'm saying. If you do start listening for the first time, go back to some of the early episodes, listen to his principles of investing. Before I talk about our second sponsor today, Tactical, what have you been working on today?
Rock garden.
Is that why you're late to the show?
Sure.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
The rock garden is a spot where there was a bunch of rocks that prevented me from mowing. It was always a pain to deal with, and so I kind of dug some stuff out.
Can you start over with the rock garden, please? Because they couldn't hear you because the mic was over here and you were across the room.
Oh.
But I fixed your mic.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's an area where there was a bunch of slab rock that you can't run a lawnmower. It was always overgrown with 6-8 foot weeds. And there was some other smaller rocks, so I moved them around to basically build a small retaining wall and turned it into something that kind of looks like a raised bed. And it still wasn't great, so it kind of got out of control, and I started reclaiming it, and I'm adding some more rock in to kind of build up the edge. There's also a huge drainage problem right there, and I end up with essentially a creek underneath my front door going across the concrete.
That didn't used to happen.
Well, happens now.
Yeah. So something about the changes that have been made in the last 5 years have made that happen, because it didn't happen for 15 years before that.
Yeah, and I know roughly how that's happening. So there's some leaks in a little berm that I've got to plug, and that will move the water around further away from the front door. And so I've got a lot of it reclaimed. The center section is kind of interesting because there's a piece of slab rock, but it's kind of in 3 pieces. And so I filled in the low spot with dirt, and it's in the shape of a V, like a straight up V.
V for victory?
Sure.
V for vendetta?
I don't know, but that's in the point of the V is where I put that one rosemary that actually made it through, well, I guess 1.5 winters. Almost got taken out by the ants, but it's apparently a really good spot for rosemary. And then the 2 tips of the V, I've got Greek and another kind of oregano that just dominate.
Oregano is a great ground cover, I've found, especially for those tough areas you don't want to mow if you get it established, because it chokes the other stuff out. As long as the other stuff isn't too insane. So I like getting oregano going all over the property. Plus, I can dry it and sell it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool. Okay, before we go on to the next thing, I'm going to talk about our second sponsor of today's show, which is Holler Roast Coffee. That's right. You can get delicious, fresh roasted coffee delivered straight to your cup if you're visiting the Holler, or delivered straight to your door so you can make coffee. Check it out at hollerroast.com. If you're interested in helping me not continue to have hot yoga, only it's hot work day, we are doing an HVAC pre-buy. I had committed all of my funds to pre-buy my Colombian organic beans so they stay organic. And then right after that happened, my HVAC unit crapped the bed, basically. So I am pre-selling the coffee. You get coffee gift cards if you buy the pre-buy, so that I can offset the desire to have HVAC in the summer. So I am doing that over at hollerroast.com. Click on coffee shop, and then the first product is the coffee pre-buy. It's also highlighted at the top of the page as we start rolling this out. We have funded almost 50% of the pre-buy at this point. So guys, thanks for that. I haven't officially launched it. We're officially launching it right now. So it's kind of nice to go into the launch with it almost half funded. So check it out, hollerroast.com. Okay. Our next topic is, guess what?
Oh.
What do you do when you're on a homestead or anywhere else and there is a disruptive energy that's not coming from either person on the homestead?
Pray harder.
Okay, but let's talk about it. That doesn't say anything.
You're gonna have to be more elaborative.
Why?
I mean, what specifically?
So we've had bad energy on this homestead for like a week.
Yeah.
And we've had it at other times in the past, and we've had the homestead blessed a couple times. And it seems to work, and then it stops working. And what I figured out is that when people come through, sometimes they leave something behind that we don't want here.
Yeah.
That's sort of how I'm seeing it. You maybe see it. How do you see it?
I mean, yeah, people can bring stuff in. And I mean, you're going down a spiritual rabbit hole, and that requires consistent prayer. I mean, that's
so
the
how do
simple
you
answer.
know that you have something disruptive around?
I mean, I feel it in the spirit. Like, you know, when you are a Christian, you have the Spirit in you, and if you're not a Christian and you're not aware of that, think of Star Wars and the Force. You know, you feel the disruption in the Force, kind of a thing.
And how do you then go from there? Like, because what was happening with me is I was seeing a presence, which was weird, out of the corner of my eye, and then I was feeling very unsettled, and things were not going the way they needed to, and I was having trouble focusing as a result of this.
Yeah.
So then that meant I was further behind on things and unable to focus and really trying to get on it. And then I finally brought it up with you, thinking you were going to think I was completely crazy.
No, it's completely legit. I mean, people don't like to talk about it, but like, I mean, there is a spiritual world, and people will try to twist and construe stuff into stuff that it's not, or make it feel better or whatever, but there is a reality to it. And I mean, go to the Bible and see what scripture says. And the instructions are going to be pretty clear. It's going to be about prayer.
So yesterday we fasted all day and prayed about it. And the energy is back to normal here. Because one of the cool things that I like to share with people in the Holler is that this is a very restful place usually. And we're able to talk about hard things here, I think, because of the peaceful environment. Chestnut, stop. Chestnut. And when there's disruptive or negative energy that comes in, or presences, it then becomes not restful. And then that means when we bring people in to experience it, they don't experience it, right? So it's something, it may seem weird for me to bring this up on a homesteading show, and I don't care, because I don't think it's weird. I felt like I needed to bring it up today.
It's reality.
This can happen anywhere. And if you don't take purposeful steps to deal with that disruption, whether it's attached to a place, an object, it's just there, a person, then you end up, I think, attracting more and ending up further in the wrong direction than if you address it. And so this is something we've addressed proactively here several times.
Yeah. And we'll do it.
And it will happen again. I'm almost like maybe it's a weekly thing, or I don't even know, because it's, you know, there's a duty here as stewards of the land and of the people who come to this land to keep it as peaceful and positive as we can.
Yeah.
And just because it would happen at about the worst time for this to possibly happen, I would say.
That's probably why it happened.
Yeah, and so I feel like we didn't serve people as well on Sunday as we could have. Although I think Sunday was a good day.
Yeah.
But part of that was because I felt unsettled the whole day.
Oh yeah, I was definitely. I mean, I think Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, I just had, the easiest way to describe it is just a sick feeling in my gut.
Yep.
What?
Well, now that I drank all the water, I have to pee.
Apparently.
That's what that means. Anyway, Amy says, fasting is a very recent action being taken by many around me recently. That's the other thing, is I'm noticing that I come across something like fasting or whatever else, or prayer or whatever it is, over and over and over in a concentrated period of time. And usually that means I need to consider it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting how that comes through as well. And this morning, I was doing my morning reading. I'm going to read this to y'all. And this came up, and it has, I've been struggling with explaining what we mean by expanding the holler. Because like my house is my house and I don't want people moving into my house. And I only have like so much land, right? But we are welcoming more people in. We're looking at doing things that are useful here. And I was reading this book, which is Good Energy by Dr. Casey Means. And she's frustrated with how modern medicine does not serve people. And so she has a whole analysis of, on the cellular level, things you can do to take care of yourself better and to get out of the bad energy and put your cells into a state, cells like mitochondria cells, into a state of good energy. Because a lot of the things around us, nutritionally, energetically, spiritually, and environmentally, are also culturally, are forcing us into a state of just constant cortisol reaction, dopamine, seeking dopamine all the time. And so she has, she talks about that. She talks about what's happening on a cellular level. She talks about exercise and kinds of exercise, nutritions and kinds of nutritions, how to cut toxins out of your life, different things you can do. And I'm kind of on to the psychological part at this point. So the cool thing about this book, it's taken me forever to read it because I've just been reading a little bit at a time and thinking about it, is as we are talking about what I think is the true value of the Holler Homestead, which isn't any product that we produce or any class that we give. It's just that it is. It's that it's developing into a regenerative systems-based place that is more linked to nature, more tapped into nature in a way that, when you put your thumb up like that, you just got a thumbs up on the screen. Anyway, it's doing it and showing people how that can work, but we also share our mistakes because you don't just like wave a magic wand and have a regenerative farm unless you're way richer than I am and also way more informed on how all of that works. And most of the great regenerative farms I've seen, it started with one thing and then another thing and then another thing. So this is what I read this morning when I got up, which I thought was really interesting as I struggle to explain why we want to do what we want to do here. And it was this: until recent history, humans were less distracted by constant assaults on our attention that trigger our dopamine and keep us coming back for more. We had space to be humbled by the grandeur of nature and life cycles, with animals, harvests, the sun, the moon, birth, and death being experienced as cosmic, powerful forces. We've been robbed of this connection to our bodies and nature and need to make conscious effort to train our brains back to being able to see and appreciate the majesty of it all. Miracles are hiding in plain sight everywhere, obscured by the distraction industrial complex. I actually really like that term, distraction industrial complex. In a zero-sum game of attention, it is an act of rebellion and independence to refocus your attention on awe. What do you think about that?
I mean, we were talking about it earlier this morning, and I mean, I don't even know what you call it, the timeline of events for me showing up here. And I mean, when I got out of the military, I knew I could not go home, which had everything to do with me. And I had nowhere to go until you offered for me to come here. But even when I got here, it was like I flew back to the States, went back to my parents, loaded a truck up, and drove up here with the contents that I could put in my truck. And I spent, months living out of my hammock in a backpack in my truck. And I didn't realize it until recently how much of a hard reset that was on my brain, just because I went from the living hell that was my last unit and everything that went along with that to sleeping in nature, which I think is what we're intended to be in, not this concrete strip mall that everybody wants to build. I mean, it's the longer I'm out here, the more I despise going to town because it's just so manufactured and fake. Everything about it. And like, especially the parts of town that I'm going into, it's one giant strip mall just to sell you stuff. Mostly stuff that you don't need.
Sometimes stuff you do need, though, like mushroom soy sauce.
I mean, I'm not completely bashing towns, but
yeah,
I mean, it's all just so commercialized, and being out here, there's a couple of places I go, and it's almost like I was just drawn to a couple of specific spots. And there's nothing man-made there. Literally nothing man-made. The one spot in the pasture, there's high voltage power lines, and those irritate me. I wish they weren't there. But, I've always preferred, like, sitting on the porch. I call it the land between the worlds, because you've got, fresh air and natural noises, but I've also got a roof and the comfort of my chair. But I mean, given the choice between sitting on my porch or going and sitting on a rock in the middle of the creek, I'd rather be sitting on a rock in the middle of the creek.
and if that creek, instead of being more naturally organized, was where our cornfields came up to, and we were using Roundup all the time, it wouldn't even necessarily be a place where you could sit. So what's interesting to me is that as you become more aware of how nature is working and take time, like I'm back to walking about every day. And while I do walk on a road, anybody who's seen my road, this time of year I walk on a road because of snakes and chiggers and ticks. Anybody who knows where I walk, it's along a creek bed. There aren't cars. It's almost like a
there's weeds growing in the middle of the road.
Right. Yeah. It's very in touch with nature. And I am actually interested in getting some more footpaths put in here as we expand out. Because I cruise off the road too. But I don't go like to the upper ruin at this time of year usually. Just because not that I wouldn't, but I definitely want to take a shower after that to make sure I didn't have ticks everywhere. But it's, when you see that, you can't help but separate like good and evil in some ways. Like nature is organized in a way that's very good. And what we've done with the industrial farming approach is evil. We're like literally working against Mother Nature, sending our topsoil down the river, and you need topsoil to grow food. And that's super damaging. So anyway, I know that's a weird, deep topic to talk about on a Homestead Update show, but also, why do you think we do what we do? This is why we do what we do. It's because we all have in this network, I think, a yearning to be more connected with nature and healthier because of it. Like we can tell there's something here, but sometimes it's hard to figure out how to access it.
Yeah.
And I think, like you can take little steps to access it without necessarily selling everything you own right now and buying a homestead. Although Courtney's homestead is for sale for like $450,000, I think, something like that, or I don't know. It's in Manchester, and I believe it comes with the livestock and all the systems they set up. Like it's kind of a unique thing they're doing, but they're looking for stewards of the homestead to buy like people who want to keep it a homestead. So they're being very particular about it. Amy says, I have a bridge over my pond that's the same meditative space. Yeah. So Tactical and I have different places we go.
Yeah.
But we both have places we go, and I'm kind of cut off from my favorite place right now.
Oh.
The Upper Ruin Amphitheater.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that fence needs to come down.
it's not a fence. Upper Ruin.
Yeah, I got a fence across that right.
Oh, yeah, that's not the issue.
Oh.
Yeah, there's some tall weeds and snakes. So I feel like I need to go for a walk with a weed whacker in my
You
hand.
don't have to go to the woods to step on a snake.
Speaking of that, what happened? Well, let me read this first. Pack Rat says the Tennessee Assembly passed HJR 0051 designating July 2025 as a time of prayer and fasting. I wonder why they did that. Pack Rat, tell me why they did that. So, they're liquidating the livestock separately on that farm. So I believe if you bought it and were like, hey, and I want, your cows and stuff, they would be very pro making that integration. So I was in here and I heard Tactical say, oh, shh, in a tone of voice that I hadn't heard before. And I immediately thought, there's a snake. Tell them where you were when you said that and what happened. And I was right, by the way. That's how well I speak redneck, is I could tell by the tone of voice when he says the S word that there's a giant snake.
I just sent you the picture on Telegram.
Okay.
But yeah, I was going to grab something out of the back of my Jeep, and I think I already had the back hatch open, and for whatever reason, having to look down, and yeah, I don't know how long this guy was, but maybe a good 5 foot at least. And I literally, I don't know if I was going to step on his head or whether my foot was going to land about, an inch or two from his head. But yeah, if you're watching.
There he is. He's not a rattlesnake or anything
Yeah.
poisonous, by the way. He was just big.
Yeah, he was big, and I was not expecting him to be there. And so it, like, when I first saw it, I mean, it definitely was a surprise. And it's like, if I see a snake when I'm down by the pond, like, that's kind of to be expected. It's a lot less surprising, but up in the middle of the driveway coming out from underneath the roasting shack is not exactly where I normally see. Like, I think that's the only time I've seen one up around your house.
Yeah. I don't know if they can see that. Like, I thought I shared it, but it doesn't look like. Can you guys see the snake? Let's see. I'm going to pull it up. Okay, there you go. So there it is. And that's it. It was a pretty big snake, but it was kind of fun. Oh, and I need to update. I don't know how to stop the share. Geesh. So all the controls have changed on StreamYard since yesterday, just so you know.
Apparently.
Yeah, I was like, wow, how do I do it? So that was fun. I'm assuming we are back off screen. If there's still a random snake on screen, let me know, and I'll try to figure out how that happened. So, it's kind of interesting when you live around somebody all the time, how their tones of voice start becoming something you can understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I totally knew snake right away. Packrat says Sweet Chapel Farm is providing post after illustrated post of the details of a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1940s farmhouse, 2.88 acres of fenced, cultivated, and herb garden. I just can't remember what the price was for that. So I'll share it out on social media today just so people can see. I know they want to move because they want to move to closer to the church they go to. So that's why they're leaving. Okay. Yep. Okay, young food. Okay, so next topic, sheep ear scab. I declared sheep ear scab a problem when I saw a sheep with a very scabby ear. And what sheep ear scab is that when it rains a lot in particular, they can get a bit of an infection on their ear and it ends up scabby. And the way you treat it is you put lanolin on it like a cream and it kind of heals itself. So, what are you doing?
Tigger is very protesty because there was stuff in his chair.
Yeah, well, that's because you put that stuff there to fix my AC.
You know.
Anyway, so we went. So yesterday was our first day trying to organize with a shared blackboard. How did that go? This is how this went. Before he managed to come up for coffee, I had the whole thing filled out.
No.
Was it organized the way you'd organize it?
No.
No. Did it make any sense to you at all?
To an extent.
Was it helpful?
To an extent.
So the part he failed to grasp was that when I said sheep ears on there, I meant sheep ears have to be done today. And so yesterday I had, starting at 3:00, a super busy schedule because I was on the Tinker Tribe podcast, which, by the way, check out the Tinker Tribe podcast on YouTube. You can, or I assume it's an audio podcast. I've only just seen it on YouTube. Anyway, that premiered today at 10 a.m. over at Tinker Tribe, and I was interviewed there. But I had like 3:00 a meeting, 4:00 time to work out, plus getting dinner in the oven because I wasn't on Tinker Tribe yesterday. I was on the day before. Anyway, and then I had a workout, and then 5:00 I had to start cooking because there was a Holler neighbor dinner at 6, and I wanted to be on time, except for everybody was late to dinner last night, which was fine. And so it was just like a race. And it was, I don't know, 1:30, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to go do all this other stuff for an hour and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, listen, if you want my help with the sheep ear scab, we have to do it soon. Because the purpose of the blackboard is that things like that become something we're like, oh, we need to do that together, so we should put it on the schedule. He's like, I didn't think we were doing that today. And I was like, yes, but if it gets more infected, then it's not just going to be lanolin that stops the problem. It's going to be a whole other thing. He looked really grumpy about this because all he wanted to do was play in his rock garden, correct?
I wasn't even going to work on that at that point. I had some stuff that I was going to move some dirt over there, but I was going to do something else.
Probably dirt and weed whacking.
Yeah,
no, you wanted to mow something.
Yeah, I think I did get on the mower.
So anyway, I was like, okay, listen, I got a thing at 3. If at 2:00 we can go over and do this together, life would be good. And then I'll get back in time to have my call, and you can still like do whatever was on top of your mind today. Because if you get distracted, then you end up with forgetting to do the thing. And he was like, okay. And so then by 2:15, he was ready to go, but I couldn't find the lanolin. And then I finally found the not lanolin. And we went over. And he's like, I don't know how this is going to go. I'm like, can we catch him? He's like, I don't know. Absolutely negative on the entire thing. Were you feeling negative about that yesterday?
Well, I mean, that's one of those deals is it's like you go over there and there's a chance that everybody is going to walk up to you. There's a chance they're going to walk up, look at you, be like, you don't have a feed scoop. We're going over here.
We could have just brought a feed scoop. You came prepared with a feed scoop, right?
Yeah. I mean, I had a little bit of feed, but I mean, I don't know. It's one of those deals. It's like you got a sheep that you need to get a hold of, and it's like sometimes it's the day you go over there is the day that particular sheep wants absolutely nothing to do with you, and then there's other times that all they want to do is like sit in your lap.
So how'd that go for us yesterday? I had to go up a part of the pasture I've never driven up in a 4-wheeler, which if you've listened to the podcast at all, you know I don't love being on steep hills on 4-wheelers because I know somebody who died by a tractor rolling over on them. And so I've always been a little more hesitant. And I heard the story described in detail over and over and over and over for a period of months by somebody else. So I just, I have a hearty respect for the steepness of things and being on heavy equipment and how that heavy equipment could actually kill you. It's not just that you fall off. It's if you fall off and it rolls on you, you might die or break a rib.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then there's this one part of the pasture, like, even if you walk on your feet, sometimes you fall on your face or down it.
Yeah.
So that was the part of the pasture we needed to drive up to get to the sheep. And he was like, So I'm following him and I'm giving distance because he's smoking. And I've had a big reaction to cigarette smoke. So I'm giving him a bunch of distance because his smoke hits me in the face when he does that. And he's like, aren't you coming? And I'm like, I'm coming, like, go, but I need you to go so that I can come. So then I get over there and I meet him and he's like, hey, so we're going to have to, the part you're not going to like about this, and he didn't tell me this before.
I didn't think of it until we got over there.
You're going to have to go up that part of the pasture you don't like to go up. And so I was like, okay, so how do I do this? He's like, just follow me. And then he went up and I followed him and I made it. The thing is, going up the sheep pasture is not as scary as going down.
It's always more difficult going down.
Right. So then we got there and hopped over the fence, and the one with the ear scab ran straight up to me, let me pet her. I grabbed her collar, put a little bit of the lanolin on her ear. She didn't like that. I got Tactical to hold her, and then I made sure her ears were lanolined, and then we looked at everybody else, and nobody else had ear scab. So it took almost no time, and the one who needed the help was the one who like literally was like, hey, can you like maybe put some on my ear? Because, you know, so it was one of those days where everything went perfectly.
Yeah.
And I also didn't roll on the way down the steep spot.
Yeah. And that's, I think in the last week or two, I've been up that stretch of the pasture on a 4-wheeler 6 to 10 times a day. So I don't even think about it. Like, I just go. And so it didn't even dawn on me that we were going to have to go up that side until I actually started pulling around the barn and was like, oh yeah, there's a fence the way that you normally go up. And as soon as the sheep hear the 4-wheeler, if they get up, they're going straight to the top of the paddock. So yeah, I didn't even think about it until we actually got over there.
His whole demeanor changed after that was over. He became a happier redneck for the rest of the day.
I was expecting that to be extremely painful.
He also thought I wanted to be up there for hours doing things, I think.
I thought you were trying to get half the flock.
If they had had ear scab, I would have tried to get half the flock, but nobody else had ear scab except for Amy or whoever. Allie. It's Amy Allie for me because they look the same to me.
I think that was Amy.
Okay. Anyway, so sometimes you have to work on things together. So as a result of yesterday's chalkboard experience, how is the chalkboard working today? I changed the format after talking to you.
I mean, there's not much on the list for today. I still got to go back and look at it. So this morning was a little, I'm not going to say off kilter, but I was tired last night, so I slept a little bit later than I normally do. So everything's a half hour behind, roughly. And it's also hot. Like, oh, that's another thing we didn't put on the list, I don't think, is we did hit the light switch moment of the year where the tomatoes are like, it's hot and we're going to drink the entire sump of water in like 5 hours. Which I discovered at, I don't know, 11:30 at night, like 2 days ago when I came up and was like, oh, the sump is empty and I can hear the pump just sucking air. And I looked and did not see a leak and was just like, I'm just going to unplug the pump for the night and deal with this in the morning. And then I think it was yesterday, it was like same thing. The sump is almost dry. So we've definitely hit the point in the year where everybody is like, it's hot.
Yeah, and this is where I don't know if we're going to stay in balance there with the compost tea that I put in. Like I've been adding compost tea every time we make compost tea to that tomato system. And so far I haven't had to add nutrients. We're getting to the point where it's so hot that the plants can't absorb calcium through their roots. So they need a foliar spray with calcium. And I'll be doing that hopefully on Sunday afternoon. And then also because that's going through so much water. It's mostly like my well water, and it's not that same symbiotic relationship that we've had. So it's going to be interesting seeing how balancing that is. So the way the Blackboard changed, though, is that we have a list of important but more than 1 day projects for the development of what we're doing here. We have urgent projects, we have maintenance, and then a couple of other just keeping us focused things.
Yeah.
And they all have like, here's the item and there's a line to the left. And if you put your initial on it, that means that's sort of your immediate focus for the day. So the intention is that it's kind of like my 3 things on a blackboard in a lot of ways. Like the intention is not assign it all to everybody right now. It's choose the things we're going to work on today so we get forward progress, but also see it in the context of other things that need to happen. So what was cool today is on the long-term, like it's going to take more than 1 day to do, but long-term, short-term list, like it's important. It's the importance list, but not urgent, is to get the glamper set up somewhere so it can be on Hip Camp or Airbnb as a possible place people can stay. And what we decided to do was where the old garden was that we've moved down the hill from, look at maybe putting it there because we're not building the barn right now there. And we may never build the barn right there, depending on how things evolve here. So we looked at it yesterday and I'm like, well, this spot, we could still back the camper in and back the camper out pretty easily. We just have to move a fence. So what did you ask me off the record today that we're not going to talk about on the show?
Oh, well.
About the cabin or the shed up there?
Oh, whether or not it was staying?
Yeah, so it's on the list. So then that means he's kind of thinking about it after he's read it. And he was like, he realized, you know, again, when you look at things like this, the boundaries that are there are not always the boundaries. It's like your success. You can be successful, but sometimes you put yourself in boundaries that don't need to be there. The boundaries we have right now that are keeping us from putting, you know, a camper up there is that it's an old fenced garden space. There's a bunch of overgrowth in there, which you've taken some steps today to deal with, just because it's been ignored because I moved the garden. And then there is a storage shed up there that we were kind of thinking of turning into a tiny cabin, but never did. But we've been using it to store my beans and my coffee beans. And it's kind of a pain in the neck to move the coffee beans from up there down to the roasting shack, if we're completely honest. But there's water and power to that shed.
Yeah. And
so then he slept on it. What happened today?
Well, I mean, I don't even know why I thought about that, but it just dawned on me like that shed is not permanent. It's not a rock slab. The biggest issue with putting an RV up there is maneuverability. And if you were going to put an RV up there, the easiest place to back one in is exactly where that shed is. And it's basically a ready-made, like it's already there. There will be a couple of things that have to get tweaked with the electrical and the water, but like it's literally the easiest spot.
Yeah, so he came down, he's like, you know, this is not necessarily the best idea, but what if we move the shed? And I was like, that's actually the best idea. That is the best idea.
Yeah.
And it makes it so you can back the camper in there. On a wet day, I can't pull it out because you know why.
Yeah.
But, you know, if I know I'm going to need to use it to go to Self-Reliance Festival, for example, then, which I think it does need to go to Self-Reliance Festival, and we look at the weather a month in advance, we can be like, oh, yeah, we're going to have to pull that out at this time, or it's not going to work. So it actually kind of works as long as I don't have the thing booked solid up to event. So I have to have space like 3 weeks probably before I know I'm going to have to move it. It's not booked.
Yeah.
So that it can be there. But that means that getting an RV spot in here can happen sooner rather than later. But then the thing that's our challenge is getting somebody to move and reset the cabin or the shed, the storage shed, which requires a shed dolly and it also not to be so wet that it's slipping and sliding everywhere. So then my first thought was, why don't we, I've been meaning to build onto the roasting shack to have bean storage there, but if there's room for it right by the roasting shack anyway, we could just have 2 buildings next to each other.
Yeah.
And it would be done. What do you think of that idea?
I mean, it's maybe.
Okay. He needs to think about it more.
I don't like that spot.
Why? Because you like parking things there?
No, because the buildings are too close together and you can't do anything in between them.
That's valid. And we're not moving the roasting shack.
I'm not saying we are. I'm actually thinking that maybe that shed goes over to base camp to be a tiny cabin.
Oh, maybe, but I need bean storage.
Okay.
Okay.
It's not a fully developed thought
It's
process.
not. So this is how Tactical designs things. And if you've seen my rock wall, what he did was mentally, didn't write anything down. Mentally inventory every rock on my property that was piled around the perimeter, and then had the guy with the backhoe out and told him which rock to put where. And it took him months probably to even have that inventory done. I don't even know. You're going to answer how long it took you?
I don't know.
He also doesn't know because his short-term memory is crap. So, but he stacked it, or had the guy stack it, and that's your superpower. People use like scans and AutoCAD and all sorts of things to do that sort of thing, and you can just do it in your head. So when you tell me where you want to put a building, I usually listen carefully, unless it's like absolutely I don't want it there for a different reason.
Yeah.
Because usually you're seeing things I don't see, because I'm not that visual person. So Matt is in the chat. Hi, Matt.
What's up, Matt?
Okay. So canning is ramping up. I've got 2 batches of pickled beets done, and I'll be at the SOE party this Saturday. So guess who's going to the farmer's market without me? You're not saying anything. You're just, yeah. Tactical's going to the farmer's market on Saturday so he can buy every beet he finds there. That's his mission. Right?
You're going to end up with more beets than you got bone broth.
You know what? I said up to a bushel.
Aren't you also planning on buying more beets today?
No. I'm getting the vegetables for the week. I've been getting broccoli from Michael and cauliflower.
I thought you said you were getting beets from him too.
No, I mean, if he had beets, I would. I don't think he planted any. So anyway, and that's, speaking of broccoli, like this guy, like I had a good broccoli year. We ate the broccoli. The variety of broccoli I had wasn't like the big heading broccoli. Michael is growing that kind of broccoli, and he did a great job. So last week at the farmer's market, on my way out with my beets to pickle, I was like, actually, Tactical, can you go back and buy all the broccoli? And I blanched it that day, and I threw it on trays in the freezer. And so that it was like, you dry it, you blanch it, you dry it, you put it on trays in the freezer, and then you put that in bags so it's not all like frozen together. And I got that all done, and I thought, well, so now we have 4 bags of broccoli for the winter, which as much as Tactical eats, that's 4 side dishes. But it would be 4 side dishes for a family of 4 if you didn't have a Tactical in your life. And what that means is we're just like I'm starting to tap into the abundance from other local homesteaders, because I dramatically reduced my garden. So we're going to get some things off my garden, but most of the focus of the garden this year is what can we eat fresh versus trying to have a bunch of extra. If I have extra, of course, I'll process it. But I anticipate that we will be moving from pickled beets and frozen broccoli and making pickles and pickle relish, which is the other thing that's in season right now, to green beans and tomatoes and salsa and all of the fun stuff that we get into. And then my goal this year is to get my hands on as many fresh peppers that I can pre-dice and freeze, again, flat on trays, so that we can reduce the desire to buy store peppers in the winter, because we can saute them up that way. And something I noticed last year is it's not a lot of money spent on peppers, but it's definitely healthier for us to get the stuff that's in season, get it frozen immediately or processed however we're going to, and then work that into our meal plan rather than augment with the grocery store. Not that it's, like eating vegetables at the grocery store is better than not eating vegetables, right? But my goal is that we get more and more locally, and that requires a little bit more work up front. And now is when we're doing that work. Speaking of which, remember how we've talked about garlic independence? Yesterday, I harvested the garlic, and here's why. If you follow Sandy from the East Tennessee Homesteaders Alliance, who is a really cool chick, and that event looks really fun, and it's 2 weeks before Self-Reliance Fest, so I probably don't get to go again this year, but other people are going. She harvested her garlic, and she did a whole thing about it because she's been growing garlic for years, and her garlic rotted in the ground. And so she got maybe 25% of the garlic she planted, and she was like, you know what this means? More of this is getting planted for next year, but I still got garlic, right? And that's the way my garlic experience has been. I've had a year like that, like she had. And the issue that led to that was that all of the rain meant it was too wet in the ground when it was bulbing out, and it just sort of rotted in there. So, I talked to her a little bit about that. And then this week we have had days without rain, and the days without rain mean that I can harvest my garlic without it being a muddy mess. And so I was like, okay, so up on the board was harvest garlic because it's supposed to rain today, or it might rain today, or it might have rained last night. And it's Tennessee, so we don't really know when it's really going to rain, but it kind of looks like it's going to rain, and definitely feels very humid right now. And yesterday, with all of the crazy going on, I finally came to the conclusion, because I had some things that needed to be done that were important. And I felt like this urge to, like, if I don't get the garlic out, I'm going to be in trouble. I'm like, you know what? I can harvest garlic after dinner. And we have a Holler neighbor dinner, which Lynn missed out on because she's out of town right now. And I wanted to make sure that went well and on time. And I was like, like harvesting garlic's going to take me 15 minutes? I can totally fit that in after dinner, sometime between 7 and 8 o'clock. The sun's still up. It'll be fine. So that's what I did. After dinner, I went out there and harvested the garlic. And I'm pleased to announce that my garlic did not rot. Yeah. So I came out with 100% success rate on the garlic, except for the 2 bulbs I hit with the shovel, which happens every year, or the spade. I wasn't really using a shovel. And there was only one tricky part, and that was that I needed to orange oil the fire ants to be able to harvest the last garlic bulb. And it's still out there because there were still ants moving on it. So I just sort of left it. But I have some fire ants infiltrating my garden. Yeah. So that worked really well. We are still garlic independent. And I'm now setting it out to cure for 2 weeks. And then we'll have garlic. And I'll decide which garlic is going back in the ground and put it in the prepper pantry until it's time to plant it in the fall. Pack Rat says, your plant it here, plant it there philosophy helps with resilience. Plant somewhere it's really usually too wet or too dry, less sun, more sun. You're more likely. Yeah. So speaking of that, Tactical decided that he could take a step towards that RV space by opening the gate from the goat pasture to the old garden. How'd that go for you?
That's another reason I was off this morning. Was like I walked out the front door, set my coffee cup down, because why carry it all the way up there when I'm just coming right back? It's literally go pull the chain off of the gate, kick the gate open, and let the goats in. Of course, the vines had grown up around the gate, so there was kicking to get the gate open far enough that I could squeeze through and then get the gate off of the hinges, lean it over, and yank until I managed to yank all of the vines loose. Went to walk out because I was going to throw the chain on the other gate so that the goats couldn't somehow finnick the latch loose. and was like, "Oh, that's garlic." Pulled some out, and then was like, "Oh, there's a ton of it over here." So I mean, I don't know. I've
He
probably got,
harvested about 25% of my total crop
yeah.
in elephant garlic, which is technically an onion. But the thing is, elephant garlic is perennial here, and I have like plopped it all over the property. But where he was opening the gate used to be a garlic patch, and that was the garlic patch where the garlic rotted last time I had it there. So it didn't really rot. It just came back 3 years later.
Well, I mean, it was all over the lower half of the garden area.
Yeah.
So I went up and looked at the upper part where we had a garlic patch the one time, and there was nothing up there. But the lower part, and I'd say probably a quarter of the stuff that I grabbed a hold of, the stem just was too far gone and just.
Yeah, it's fine. It'll be back.
Yeah.
So that's why I like to get elephant garlic into food forests and other things here, because it just sort of, it clumps out. And it means that at any time of year, if you know where the garlic was, you usually can dig down and find it if you're out of garlic.
Yeah.
So that's how I store garlic in the ground, even though it's technically in the onion family, whatever. It tastes like garlic. It works like garlic in recipes, and you get really big bulbs. And those are really delicious if you broil them with butter and spread them on bread, except for I don't eat bread anymore. So I have to find something else to spread it on, but it's delicious. Cucumbers would probably be good. So garlic, there was a goat garlic harvest too.
Apparently.
Yeah. So the first tomato is close to being ripe. Yeah, we're a little early this year.
I was going to say it seems a little early.
It's a little early. I expect it in the next week to go. And I'm sort of almost always on the same schedule with my tomatoes. I don't try to push the seasons with them. I just let them do their thing and then go on with my life. This morning, I had an idea for shade. So last week, we talked about how we were going to do shade over my garden. And he was like, we need to get these cedar trees and make these beautiful, cool looking posts. And I was like, I love this idea. And then we looked at the list on the chalkboard this week and we're like, okay, so let's get real about what we're doing for the shade cloth this year. Because that's not happening, is it?
Yeah, well, I mean, that was part of the conversation was we want to do that the right way. Probably should do it with cedar. And when I say the right way, the better way. And it's like, I don't have the time right now. So it would probably be better to just rig something this year and plan on trying to do that over the winter or next year.
So this goes back to boundaries that you put that are false boundaries in your head getting in the way. So as we were thinking about it, I kept thinking like, can we find something tall to run paracord from and just hang it up? And there's weird paracord going everywhere. Can we put posts in without me having to actually buy the posts? Like there was a whole thing I went through. And finally this morning, having finally cleared the clutter from my head from the bad energy and had good energy, I thought, I know what I could do is I could take one of my pieces of shade cloth and cut it into 4x8 pieces basically. And we could have like, I don't know, 1x2s or some sort of framing that gets it up at least 6 feet above the bed so that I can still get in and out of there. At first I was like, we'll just build it low and I'll roll it back every time I need to get there. And I'm like, I hate doing that. So if it's tall enough, then I don't have to roll it back. And I told him that this morning. And he was like, well, that's an idea. Which means he doesn't like my idea.
You said like 1x2s, and I was like, that's not going to hold up. Or at least that's what I was thinking. Like, I do have some fittings for PVC that might work, but there's also, I've got one more idea in my head, but I've got to actually go out there and look at it to see if it's in any way feasible.
The price of a 2x4x8 at Home Depot this week is $3.99. $1.75.
Okay.
I know that from the shopping report.
Okay.
Just saying. JS. That would get you 6 feet above and 2 feet. If you went all the way to the bottom, 2 feet down. We could either go inside the beds or outside the beds.
Okay.
Is that all you got on that? What's your idea? Tell me what your idea is. You're talking PVC frame, like, what are you thinking? You guys know this will all be different by next week. Okay, go.
I mean, I've got some PVC fittings that you could probably build a PVC frame out of that would basically have 4 sides and 4 legs. The other possible option is rigging a post on either side with tie outs in 3 directions and a piece of 550 cord going in between the 2 posts, and your shade cloth would end up more like a tent that would be high enough up that you could walk under it. But that's one where I've actually got to go look at it and make sure that the picture in my head is reality and not the reality that I wanted. That's not real.
That mofo's not real. Remember that video of the lady on the plane?
No.
Oh, okay, yeah. Then it was a joke for me and for the people who are listening who think it's funny, and you don't think it's funny, do you?
No idea what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
I'm going to play you the video later. You're going to laugh so hard. I'm just saying. Okay, so cucumbers are doing well this year as predicted. My cucumbers are only 4 inches tall, but they look good. And they're coming in at a time where, hand me that jar. That one, yeah. They're coming in at a time when I'm busy because I'm going to SOE. But this is the pickle relish I make. The pickle relish I make does not have any sugar. It's got peppers and vinegar and salt and spices and cucumbers and dill. And this stuff is amazing for making deviled eggs. So what I do when I make deviled eggs with pickle relish is I just put a little bit of salt in the yolks. I put a tablespoon of this. I put mayonnaise, mustard. And do you like those?
Yeah.
Yeah. If I want to, get the horseradishy part, I put a little bit of horseradish in there. And then this is, if you like hot dogs and stuff, this is really good for it too. And I made a really fancy label for it. You like my label? Yeah. Also did it on the top. I was playing around with this. So it's coming at a time of year though, where I don't have time in the next 4 days to make pickle relish. So unfortunately, I could have bought a whole box of pickles for cheap last week for a really good price. Not cheap, but for a really good price. And I didn't because I knew I wasn't with our meetup on Sunday. I wasn't going to actually get it done. And now this week, once again, not going to get it done.
Well.
So I'm really hoping that the cucumbers stay good and that I'm able to get a bunch of the pickle relish made, or else there's only like 6 jars of this right now. So we will see. And you like the pickles I make, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is the deal with the cucumbers. And then if that doesn't work, I'm hoping the plants I plant actually don't get fried out, which is why I was sort of keen on that shade cloth. Because when I was in the garden yesterday, my leaves are starting to look stressed. And we've done everything we can with compost tea. We've done our best with the soil. Even my best bed, the leaves are looking stressed. And the reason they're looking stressed is that the oven turned on and the sun came out. And they need more shade. So then I was like, okay, we need to do this before we kill all the plants, because I'm going to be really sad if my garden ends up being just a dead wasteland, which luckily I don't live in Texas like Jack Spirko, where he does just get sort of a dead wasteland.
It's because he lives in Texas.
He does get it a little less now that he's been doing the bioreactor compost and the biochar. Just saying. JS. Other than that, how's egg collection going? We're not entirely sure that snake wasn't responsible for some egg disappearance. I did notice that you had more eggs today than yesterday.
I think yesterday there was like 2.
Yeah.
Today there was 6. and they're off of their normal feed. So, I don't know. See what happens tomorrow. But, I mean, we do need to get another layer into the duck coop. And I guess the other thing that changed is there's now sheep outside their front door.
Yeah.
Which is also their preferred place for making nests.
Or are you going to go bust some duck nests?
I've already busted at least 3 in that area.
So we used to let the ducks set their eggs, but what happens is they don't. They do and then they don't. Or they hatch them out and then they don't take care of their babies very well. And so I've gotten to the point where a duck, like if we're going to hatch the eggs, we use the incubator.
Yeah.
And that's gone well. But we don't just let them set their eggs because we just end up with a tragic story of a beautiful baby duck that then died because its mom didn't take care of it.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's like because of how rugged my property is. I think that's partially because of that. And maybe khaki Campbells are also not the best parents. Well, even the Muscovies don't here.
That, and I mean, I think that if we are ever going to just let them set eggs again, it's going to be one of the Muscovies goes broody and she gets locked in a special tractor with the eggs and food and water and just stays there until the babies are big enough to come out.
Yeah, well, and the issue with that is that you can't move a nest once they're setting on the nest.
Yeah.
So it's like you got to trick them into doing it where you want them to do it. So
yeah.
Homestead Glamour, I'll see you tomorrow. Other than that, what's your take on how Sunday went?
It was good. I definitely found my wall for doing presentations.
Yeah, he started and went 2.5 hours without a break and then just walked off.
Everybody was conversating, so...
So he was doing the demo, and I guess I should have told you, hey, take a break now, and then come back and do the second part.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it.
I didn't either.
And it was hot. And
I didn't expect it to go that long either.
Yeah, and I think it went well. We had more RSVPs than people who showed up, which makes me question if we should do free events. Because when I charge people for events, they show up.
Yeah.
But at the same time, or I just have a 20% attrition rate assumed.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do about that. But the people who came were awesome. And it was, I really enjoyed getting to know everybody who came. And we have the rabbit processing demonstration in about, not this weekend, not next weekend, but the weekend after. So about 2 weeks from now. So you should get signed up for that if you want to come. Go to livingfreeintennessee.com to RSVP for that. Also not a paid event. We're going to start with a potluck at 1 p.m. on the 29th. And then at 2 p.m., we're going to demonstrate how you process rabbits, including skinning them and partsing them out, which we learned from, I think it was Emily out in East Tennessee.
Oh, I didn't go to that.
Yeah, Nighthawk did it. I can't remember who. She's really cool, too. I like her. Name is escaping me. She does paid classes. But, passing this knowledge on, I think, is super helpful. So that's what we're doing next Sunday. And then we haven't discussed what July looks like. I know that there's a GSD weekend at Strong Roots Resources. And that's probably, I don't know when it is exactly, but we won't talk about that till I promote it by talking to Carrie first. And then and I'm out of town for at least a week while my mom gets a knee replacement. So I feel like if there's a meetup, it's going to be later in the month, probably.
Yeah.
And it would be nice to have a meetup, but maybe the July meetup should revolve around kayaking or something. Meet at 1 p.m. on a Sunday and float the Caney Fork and then end the potluck here afterwards, for example.
Okay.
Because I think it's going to be really warm in July. And sometimes you just got to remember to have fun as homesteaders. So other than that, what do you got? Oh no.
Like, there's a reason we make a list of things.
I just like to torture. I like to torture Tactical by assaulting him with. I didn't ask you any big soul searching questions today. Anyway, guys, that's what I got for the homestead happenings. Matt says I bought a kayak for Ashley 3 years ago, not used it once. I like that idea. Yeah. So we're like ready to sell our kayaks too, because I haven't used my kayak in 5 years. When's the last time you used yours? 6 years ago?
I don't remember.
Yeah, he was going to buy 2 originally. Nighthawk has one as well. But we have kayak rentals nearby too. There are 2 rental places nearby. So we could probably, the only thing is on a Sunday, the river is usually pretty busy. So we might want to actually float Indian River, Indian Cove, whatever that is, because it's going to be less busy than the Caney Fork. Caney Fork is cooler though, because it's like the water is colder, like cooler temperature. But you do end up on a Sunday afternoon with a lot of people out there, being people. And the other one's a little calmer, but then you'll have motorboats. And the water is the lake on that second one, which means you can swim. Water in the Caney Fork, you can swim, but it's really cold. So just got to be careful with that. So that's what I'm looking for July. If you're interested in that, just keep staying tuned. Definitely get signed up for the email newsletter. And if you like the show and want to support the work we're doing here, you can do it in 2 ways. 1, get your coffee at hollerroast.com. 2, consider becoming a member. Head over to livingfreeintennessee.com to find out more. With that, go out, make it a great